When the Spirit of the Lord moves in my soul, I sing as David sang. When the Spirit of the Lord moves in my soul, I sing as David sang. I'll sing, I'll sing, I'll sing as David sang. I'll sing, I'll sing, I'll sing like David sang. When the Spirit of the Lord moves in my soul, I praise like David praised. When the Spirit of the Lord moves in my soul, I praise like David praised. I'll praise, I'll praise, I'll praise like David praised. I'll praise, I'll praise, I'll pray like David praised. Si el Espíritu de Dios se mueve en mí, yo oro como David. Si el Espíritu de Dios se mueve en mí, yo oro como David.
Thank you.
Yo oro como David. Yo oro como David. Si el Espíritu de Dios se mueve en mí, yo salto como David. Si el Espíritu de Dios se mueve en mí, yo salto como David. Yo salto como David. Yo salto como David. Si el Espíritu de Dios se mueve en mí, yo danzo como David. Si el Espíritu de Dios se mueve en mí, yo danzo como David. Yo danzo como David. Yo danzo como David. Si el Espíritu de Dios se mueve en mí, yo río como David. Si el Espíritu de Dios se mueve en mí, yo río como David. Yo río como David. Yo río como David. Okay. Now we just go. Thank you.
I think we do need to start. And may I request that the business sessions are just as critical. So we need to have at least 20 minutes before you go through the security. That's what is delaying. I'd like to call on the Vice Moderator, Bishop Marianne, to offer a prayer for this session.
Brothers and sisters, welcome again to this afternoon business plenary. And I'm going to begin with prayer. Even as people are coming in, the Lord be with you. Let us be in a spirit of prayer. God of all blessing, Lord, you are the source of all grace. And here we gather again this afternoon to offer you praise and thanksgiving for your unfailing love and faithfulness. You show this most clearly through your Son, Jesus Christ. And we ask that you grant us grace to do our business faithfully, in respect of one another, listening to one another, sharing in spirit and in truth. And through the power of your Holy Spirit, we hope that you will open our eyes to recognize you here among us and give us courage to step out in faith to meet you and confidence to follow your lead. For you are our God and we are your people, called by your name in the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord, one God, now and forever. Amen.
I'll call on the consensus team to just give us some reminders. Not yet. Okay. They say they are not ready. It is me to go. Okay. Now, may I welcome us to this business plenary. It's the first business plenary. And every weekday afternoon, we'll have the assembly meet during this time and go through the business matters. Because of the security arrangements, it takes a bit of time to come in, and we are requesting you very humbly if you can try to be at least half an hour so that you are seated on time in any of the sessions, not just the business sessions. So on this first day of the business, I think we hope more people will come in later, but yesterday was our first day, and today is also our first day in a different matter. We opened the assembly in a spirit of togetherness and prayer. You will recollect the powerful sermon, which is in our resource, is in the worship material. And indeed, we can be grateful for this good start. As we said yesterday, being here is a miracle in itself. It is a stop on the pilgrimage, but it's also an important stop. The business committee met this morning for the first time at 7 o'clock and listened to the various concerns that had been heard after the many presentations, beginning, of course, with the morning presentations, afternoon presentations, and even the worship. And so, in listening to those concerns about some of the speeches yesterday, we did take note of a number of concerns, and we will try to address them. One of them is about participation of various member churches in the different committees of the assembly. And so we are working on that. You will be receiving feedback on that. I will nevertheless say we continue to be together as God's people on the way, despite our differences. Let me repeat what I said. This is really a safe space for interaction, safe space and free space for people to express what they would want to express. If it doesn't augur well with you, it doesn't have to hurt you so much that you become so offended and aggressive. I think we are here to dialogue, and as Archbishop Angelo said this morning, diversity is not division. Nothing on earth or in heaven can actually separate us from the love of God. So let's continue to think of the theme of our assembly, even as we disagree in the corridors, in the hotels, at meal times, wherever in this assembly. Let us disagree in a civil manner. The business committee also received suggestions, and we, as I said, we will share with you those suggestions, particularly on the inclusion of member churches' representation on committees. It may not be 100%, and I'll want to plead with us that if the larger family, in terms of communions, are represented, it doesn't have to be your own particular national church. So let's bear with one another. On this note, I would like to We said we are intergenerational, interleadership, and we are very honored at this assembly to have the leaders that have led us in the past very, very faithfully, very committed, worked on the vision of the council, delivering the mandates that they were given. And this is our moment to recognize them, to appreciate them, because they've taken their time to be here, to celebrate with us. And so I would like to call on our elder and his dear spouse, partner, companion, the Reverend Professor Dr. Conrad Reiser. Please come forward with Elizabeth. For the young theologians, for the young students, the stewards, have a seat, please. If you want to read more about our common vision, our common understanding and vision, and any material in terms of the life of the council, look for the name of Dr. Conrad Reiser and his wife, Elizabeth. Have a seat. Reverend Dr. Professor Reiser is German and led the council, was a staff for quite a long time, but I'll not go into that. We have fond memories of his contribution to the larger ecumenical movement. I will also want to recognize the Reverend Dr. Samuel Kobia, a Methodist minister from the Methodist Church of Kenya. The Reverend Kobia served at the National Council of Churches of Kenya, served in the World Council of Churches. At home, we say that Reverend Kobia has never been a parish priest, but he's a true Methodist. His parish was the world. Welcome. And of course, yesterday I did talk about the mandate of Busan being delivered by none other than the Reverend Dr. Olaf Fixet-Veit. Please welcome. It is always an honor when those who serve in this movement go back to share their cherished experiences with their church. And so the Reverend Olaf Fixet-Veit serves currently as the presiding bishop of the Church of Norway. Welcome. Yesterday I mentioned that consensus helped us in many ways. And indeed, during the last Central Committee, we were able to elect a General Secretary, and that is the Reverend Professor Dr. Jerry Pillay from the Uniting Presbyterian Church of South Africa. Welcome, Jerry. You can imagine these stalwarts of the movement. So Jerry, this is your time to brothers and sisters, don't know if this is working. We did not have time to say farewell as a central committee to our previous General Secretary, the presiding bishop of the Church of Norway. And this was because of COVID, but we did an online thing as an executive committee, and we are very grateful that he did appreciate that. Now, Reverend Jerry Pillay will have to interact with these very great men and women of God to learn from their fountains of wisdom as he assumes his responsibility in January. But being a former Central Committee member, the one that has just been released from its duty, he is here also to listen, to share, and to begin to think about how he'll carry his mandate forward. So I'd like to express our gratitude to you as the leadership. We've drawn a lot of knowledge from you in our work, and my last visit to your home was wonderful. Thank you so, so much. Could you stand, please? And I would like the leadership to take a photo. Thank you so, so much for your service. As long as God gives life to these leaders, let us appreciate them, let us draw from the fountains, because we have a continuum in the movement. Thank you so much. Now, apart from the president, from the general secretaries, we also have presidents. The World Council appointed the 8 presidents, and I think with us is only one president, and that is Archbishop Anders Weirud, Emeritus, Archbishop of the Church of Sweden. I don't know if he's here. He's leading one of the, oh, okay, thank you. But we recognize him when he comes. The others, unfortunately, were not able to make it. And so we move on. I would like then to call on the consensus team just to remind us where we are. Thank you so much, my general secretaries.
Oh, buenos tardes, Emily.
Bonjour, Selena.
How was your first day? What have you done to your nails?
After yesterday, I went out, found a nail salon, and painted them orange and blue, just like the consensus indicator cards. Do you like them?
I love them.
Ah, I also met so many nice people here. Beryl, she's a lay woman from Kenya like Agnes. I met Father Harant. He is Canadian, Armenian, living in Lebanon as part of the Armenian Orthodox Church. Did you meet anyone new?
Yes, I met Tara from New Zealand. I understand there is a country close to your country, Australia.
Yes, New Zealand is just across the ditch, but we don't mention the cricket or rugby with them. Selena, I'm learning by observing everyone here. We are starting to really learn a lot when we listen to one another and discern together.
I know. That is how we build a common mind.
I also saw many people using those indicator cards.
That is so good. In that way, the moderator can see the feeling of the room, not only for decisions, but at all sessions.
Yes, it is important that after someone speaks, that if you feel warm to what was said, raise the orange card. And if you feel cool, raise the blue. Also, when the moderator asks for a show of indicator cards.
Do you remember what you should do when you have something to say?
I think so. I go to the mic and wait for the moderator to ask me to speak. Then I introduce myself and only speak for 3 minutes.
Exactly. And you have to be patient. Consensus is a process and it does not happen automatically.
So Selena, what are we doing today?
We will have a hearing session where we receive information about the Assembly Committee agendas and then transfer into decision making where we receive the first report of the Nominations Committee and the Public Issues Committee. Next slide, please. And we will get to know the leadership of each committee when they present their agendas.
Yesterday, we used consensus to approve the names of these people. It will be great to meet them and beginning to contribute to the decision-making process. I am so excited to see the names proposed for the next Central Committee from the Nominations Committee now.
Oh no, Emily. We will not see any names or make any election today. That is way too soon. Today, we will receive a report on numbers of delegates present, how many nominations were received from member churches, and what preliminary reflections the Nominations Committee has. We will not discuss names today. That will be done in a later session.
What if I want to nominate someone else? Can I do that? And if so, how?
You are invited to comment on the report and make additional proposals by a particular time. Barrister Anne will go into more detail about that and the importance of the work of the committee in reaching fair and adequate representation.
And then we can move to election. It would be great if there would be many young people included as well.
Yes, but the election will happen another day.
Next slide. I've often read many statements coming out of the WCC on Facebook, on WCC publications. There's some great communications there. But how are they made?
Well, it's made by a committee that we elected yesterday. It's called the Public Issues Committee. During this session, we will have the moderator only to present the first report of the Public Issues Committee. We will learn about the process, including presenting the current draft statements, provide input and inviting for further statements.
And then people will be using the consensus cards again. This consensus method is fun. I like seeing people being actively engaged in the process, even though they are not saying anything. I look forward to coming back tomorrow to see what other exciting decisions will be made using consensus.
Au revoir.
Adios.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Many of you did not feel very good about the fact that after the presentation of the reports, you did not get a chance to comment, but you saw how the afternoon was. So we have about 15 minutes, and I'd like to ask Bishop Marian to moderate your input.
Thank you. We heard the reports yesterday from our moderator and from our general secretary, and now there is an opportunity for you to go to the microphone if there is a response that you would like to make, if there is something you want to share in response or in discussion about the report. I remind you this is a hearing session, so we'll listen and receive the things that you offer at the microphone, and then you will continue to have opportunities to discuss these two reports in all of your committees and in the ecumenical conversation. So we have microphone 1, 2, 3 in the far back, and 4 here. So we have 15 minutes if you'd like to go to a microphone and say anything in response to the reports yesterday from the moderator and from the General Secretary. And I can see 1, 2, and 4 pretty well, but I'm going to have trouble seeing people at number 3, so you may have to raise your cards back at number 3 because it is farther back. So I'll begin here at microphone 2, and then I'll go to microphone 4 next, and then come back to 2 again.
Thank you, moderator. Before going to the 2 reports, I would like to pay the attention of the moderator that the issue of security and the subcommittees can't be worked out because the subcommittees of the Assembly will finish at 3. And here we are going to have, so we have no time, not even 1 minute to work. I think that the Business Committee have to arrange this issue and changing the schedule, which was approved before that.
We'll take that up first thing in the morning. Thank you.
First, I am not going to speak against anybody, but I would like to say that Rule 5 of the Constitution is considering that the Assembly is the highest decision-making body, and accordingly, the Assembly must not receive any directions nor any suggestions how it shall have their work from anybody who is not a delegate. Full stop. My second point, I will thank our moderator for her report, for her work for the past 8 years, and I will not have any comments on that. But I have a comment on the General Secretary report, and it's a very crucial report. He mentioned, and rightly, that the head of churches, who he had with them closed sessions, mentioned what he mentioned. But this is half of the story. He mentioned also that he met with the Christian NGOs, but he did not say what was the opinion of the believers in Palestine and in the Christian NGOs. And accordingly, this is not the whole story. Secondly, regarding what was said about by our General Secretary about, just give me 1 minute, about the issue of anti-Semitism. We are Semitic people. We, the Arabs and the Palestinians, are Semitic people. So we are anti-Semitic. We are against being anti-Semitic. But when somebody will speak about anti-Semitic, he has to clarify an issue which is convincing the people. And here I read a small sentence. Anti-Semitism is not the same as anti-Zionism, is not the same as anti-Semitism. Here are 2 very different terms that are regularly used interchangeably in current debates. So you might be surprised to learn that they mean entirely different things. The conflation between the 2 ideas often assumes that Zionism only affects Jewish people. This approach, often repeated in current debates, erases the fact that the primary victims of the Zionist movement have been and continue to be the Palestinian people. Their rejection of Zionism, their demands for equal rights, and their desire to be able to return to their homes from which they were expelled has nothing to do with Judaism or Jews in any way. Instead, it has everything to do their opposition to the settler colonial project, which continues to dispose and oppresses them in their own lands. Anti-Zionism is therefore, before anything else, a form of solidarity with the demands of a colonized people that continues to struggle for its freedom. This is a simple yet powerful principle, which states that no one is free until we are all free. In that sense, the struggle against anti-Semitism and the struggle against Zionism are one of the same. They are both struggles against oppression, against racism, against ethnic supremacy, in a word, against injustice, in the words of the old slogan. Anti-Semitism is a crime, while anti-Zionism is a duty. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, which you gave me this opportunity. And I would like very much that our acting General Secretary will change his input about the issue and will speak up what was the opinion of the Christian people and not only the head of the churches. I admire and I respect my head of churches' willingness, but at the same time, I am one person from a population who are suffering, and accordingly, the General Secretary have to give the two stories and not only one story. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Microphone 4.
All right. Thank you, Moderator.
I say your name and where you're from,
right.
and I also remind us we really only want to speak 3 minutes at each microphone. Thank you.
Henry Ndokuba, Primate of the Church of Nigeria Anglican Communion, Nigeria. Moderator and all the people on the high table and our leaders, we are indeed very grateful. We appreciate WCC for speaking with prophetic voice on the difficult and diverse issues confronting our world. This indeed is a consultative and not necessarily a legislative assembly. But be it as it may, we want to raise some issues, especially bordering on the report of the acting secretary. First, just as no group should impose its views on the WCC, also those privileged to represent groups should not use WCC as a platform to impose or coerce others as though that is the official voice or stand, especially on issues like the human sexuality and other things. Secondly, we are thankful for clearly speaking on war-torn zones and areas of our world. We are concerned that Africa's multiple violence and especially the challenge of Islamization, persecution, and ethnic cleansing that we are experiencing in many parts of Africa are not mentioned. We need clear voice for the persecuted church, not only in Africa, but also in other parts of the world, in Asia and the Middle East. And we are indeed very grateful for what you are doing so far, but I don't know how we use our position in the United Nations and other world organizations. If it were the Muslims, all these organs would rise up for them. But when it is happening to us, we don't hear anything. So the area of advocacy is necessary for us to be able to survive what we face in Africa and other parts of the world. If what we had yesterday will be a way of mapping out what we shall do in the future, we need strategic engagement program in the spirit of ecumenism and interreligious relations, and indeed Christian mission, to raise issues of jihadism, persecution, and Islamization that is a worldwide move that we are experiencing. And the violence that we are facing in Africa, in Nigeria, in West Africa, and other parts of the world, we need to address these very clearly. Dialogue is wonderful, but we need to address these issues. And so if this will be a roadmap for future, then I think that we must engage this very, very constructively.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Microphone 2. Let me remind you also, rather than applauding, indicate your appreciation with your cards. You have your orange cards, so you could wave your orange cards and indicate your agreement and excitement about what's being said. But microphone 2.
Archbishop Narek, Armenian Apostolic Church, Holy See of Cilicia, I come from Lebanon. I extend my thanks to the moderator and the General Secretary for their reports presented to the General Assembly. I would like to make 3 observations. 1, both of them reminded us that the theme of the Assembly, Christ's love moves the world to reconciliation and unity, is anchored on justice and peace, reconciliation and unity, renewal and healing. Although this is a global longing, but I find its resonance very contemporaneous in the Middle East in general and in Lebanon in particular, where I come from. In this very context, the interreligious dialogue is a dialogue of life with all the attributes mentioned above and much more, and more challenges rising day after day. 2, a word of appreciation goes to the General Secretary for the bleeding wounds in the Middle East section of his report and his visit to the region. And here, a gentle reminder is appropriate that we appreciate also his visit to the Armenian Apostolic Church headquarters in Lebanon and meeting with the head of our church. 3, the pilgrimage of justice and peace is a continuous journey for the WCC, and I am sure that the moderator and the General Secretary will continue to accompany us on this ecumenical journey through their commitment and new responsibilities. Pilgrims are witnesses of life, and if the necessity arises, of martyria. The WCC needs not only to harvest the fruits of the witnesses returning from a pilgrimage, but to follow up the impact of pilgrimages will have on the local contexts of our churches and their milieus at large. This will strengthen our ecumenical fellowship and enrich our experience on our common journey. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Microphone 3.
Francina Yoteni from the Evangelical Christian Church in West Papua. I would like first to thank our moderator and General Secretary for their work and report from yesterday. I'm standing here on behalf of 1.5 million indigenous people of Papuan in the land of Papuan. Would like to thank the WCC for the pastoral team visit in 2019 to West Papua. This is the first international group or people who can enter this isolated place from the outsider, especially from the international. I stand here also to bring the situation, the conflict situation there, which is prolonged for 53 years already. We experience human rights abuses, killing every day, torture. We have no freedom of expression. We, as indigenous people of Papuan, who are suffer because of our political rights was not here at all. But today, we, 1.5 million people, contribute to the world. From our rainforest, we contribute oxygen to the world. Each of us breathe from this oxygen. Therefore, I'm standing here, appeal to all of you for the right of self-determination of Papuan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Microphone 4.
Hello, Christian Biso, Protestant Church in Germany, EKD, and I will speak in English. Thanks. Sisters and brothers, I would like to reflect on the term of reconciliation for one moment because it seemed to play an important role yesterday and it will play an important role as far as the spirit of this assembly is concerned. And it crossed my mind when political and other leaders took the floor yesterday how easy it happens to us that we put guilt into the very first sentences of our speeches, sometimes unconsciously. I do that myself. And how hard is reconciliation if other parties may think that prejudgment has been going on? So language may be a very important key here. Also, I see the danger of our various churches to be used by certain forces in our societies to give alibis. Alibis may be for, I'm just taking one example here, new nuclear weapons around the globe, which may threaten us all. And we will have to check our positions on this. What do we do if current political crises are being used as alibis for instance, new nuclear weapons? And what does that mean in terms of the word and the term reconciliation? So I'm thinking of language as an important key, and I'm thinking that reconciliation will only work out successfully if we can remain open for the truths of others. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Microphone 1, a young person at microphone 1.
My name is Emma Gunnarsson, representing Uniting Church in Sweden, and I will be speaking in English. Thank you, moderator, for your report. And thank you, General Secretary, for the reminding of us young people. I'm here for my first time. I'm here to learn and to share. I am young and bring me passions and pains. We young people worrying over climate crisis and war and so much more. For me and us, the ecumenical movement is necessary. We have to walk together, young and old. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Microphone 2.
Thank you, the moderator of the session. My name is Yona Katonene from the Church of Uganda. I would like to say thank you to God. We have every reason as WCC to say thank you to God, and we can actually say this far the Lord has helped us. And in this respect, I would like to also add my voice in thanking our moderator, Dr. Agnes Abom, and the Acting General Secretary for your reports. We followed, and we want to thank the moderator that we can have a session to a few minutes to make brief comments. I would like to also take this opportunity to thank you, the moderator of the WCC, for your leadership, for guiding this organization through very difficult situations, particularly COVID, and guiding us through a consensus to be able to elect a new General Secretary. Dr. Agnes, I believe I'm speaking for many to say we honor you. We thank also the Anglican Church of Kenya, which offered you to us as a special gift to this organization. And I'm glad the Archbishop is present, and through you, your grace, we really would like to thank the Anglican Church of Kenya for giving Agnes. She has been a special gift to this organization. And at personal level, let me take this opportunity to say it, because I first met Agnes in 1980 at a youth conference when she was a youth staff person of the World Council of Churches. And we met in Cyprus at a youth conference organized by the Oracle Conference of Churches and the World Council of Churches. It was the first time I met Agnes. She was just a young girl. And I have been privileged to see Agnes grow to the time now when she's a moderator of the World Council of Churches. At personal level, I want to thank God for that. And I know, Agnes, the way you have led us here, we want to thank you that even we have had the opportunity to introduce the former general secretaries of this organization. It was an emotional moment for some of us to see all of them being introduced here and ushering in the new Secretary General. That's a beautiful continuation. We want to say thank you to God. And before I conclude, we must thank you, our Acting General Secretary, Dr. Asa, Professor Saka. You have done a good job. And I wouldn't like to sit without thanking you for the accountability reports you have been giving us, which have kept us connected to WCC all this time. And both of you may be leaving the organization as leaders, but your legacy will remain in our hearts. Having said this, the report of the General Secretary...
Thank you very much.
Just half a minute. I want to raise, those were commendations. I would like to raise a few issues concerning the Acting General Secretary, which...
I'm sorry, you have to stop now. We're out of time. We've used all the time that we have, and people are also indicating with their cards that it's really time to stop. So thank you very much for what you've had to share. And don't forget, all of you, we will continue to share in your committees and in your ecumenical conversations. If we can find another time in a plenary to let you share some more, we will. But that's all the time we have now. So thank you very much, everyone, for trying, and I'll turn it back over to our moderator.
Thank you, Vice Moderator. May I request us, just requesting us so that we can move together. One, instead of clapping, if you feel warm to the point being made, just raise your orange card. If you are not so clear, you can do your blue, but hopefully there will be that. The second one is, I know that most of you did not get a chance to express what you would wish to express. Some of you have. May we again humbly request you to put it in writing and submit, because this will be part of our reflection, both in the business committee, and we can also submit it to the various group committees. So sorry that we didn't have much time, but the journey of praying, talking, walking, and working continues. So let's just talk and share. Now that brings us to another bit of our session, which is really to hear from the assembly committees. Yesterday, you took a decision and agreed to form 6 assembly committees. These committees have both moderators and rapporteurs who are represented in the business committee. We are still in a hearing session, but we may combine it also with the decision. So I'm going to ask those leaders of the various committees to submit a short report on process, on where they are at. And the first one, of course, will be the nominations committee, which is headed by none other than Barrister Anne McCool,
Before
and
you go to bed
rapporteured
tonight,
by
eat
Bishop
1/2
Rex,
teaspoon of this
please.
with water and electrify your metabolism back to...
And that is why the church should...
Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you, moderator. I'm Anne Glynn McCool. I'm Orthodox from the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate of Antioch. I'm from the United States. I'll speak in English. And the moderator calls me barrister because I'm not a theologian. I'm a lawyer, and it's her way of giving me a title, although it's not one given to me in the US. All members of the nominating committee have committed to serve our mandate to the Hall Fellowship. We will strive to nominate presidents and a new central committee that will best reflect and serve the Hall Fellowship of Churches, taking into account the many concerns of the hundreds of churches, the regions and sub-regions, and concerns of each constituency. Even if your church is not directly present on the nominations committee, please be assured that we will listen to you and take into account your concerns and the priorities identified by the Central Committee to form a body that reflects the interests of the Fellowship of Churches. Today, you will hear general principles for nominations. Tomorrow, you will see a list of everyone proposed by the member churches. Over the weekend, the nominations committee will endeavor to draw from all we have received in order to identify persons who together will compose the next Central Committee. So on Monday, you will tell us how we have done after you receive the report of the Nominations Committee for presidents and members of the Central Committee. Now the rapporteur of the Nominations Committee, Bishop Rex Reyes from the Episcopal Church in the Philippines, and I will present the first report of the Assembly Nominations Committee.
Good afternoon. The first report of the Nominations Committee, the review of the nominations process. The Nominations Committee is mandated to nominate the 8 presidents of the World Council of Churches and to prepare a list of 145 nominees to the next Central Committee from among the delegates of member churches and 5 nominees from among the delegates of member churches not fulfilling the criterion of size. A delegate must be present at the assembly to be elected to the Central Committee. The committee brings to the attention of the assembly the description of the work of the Nominations Committee, which are set on pages 34 and 36 of this resource book. The rules governing its work, which are set out on pages 123, 124 of the resource book, and the guidelines for the conduct of the meetings relating to the election process on pages 183 and 184. The committee calls the attention of the Assembly to the letter sent by the WCC Acting General Secretary to all members in January 2022, in which he quotes the following recommendation from the guidelines for the conduct of meetings.
I quote, "Prior to the assembly, member churches are invited to nominate candidates for the Central Committee from amongst assembly delegates. Consultation between churches is encouraged, such that a name supported by more than one church will carry more weight for the nominations committee. The committee received proposals for nominations from member churches and from national, sub-regional, and regional gatherings, and is taking these into consideration. The committee is giving due consideration to the wishes of the nominating churches, while acknowledging that it may not be possible to accept all recommendations.
The committee expresses its gratitude to those churches that took seriously the acting General Secretary's request and submitted their nominations through national, sub-regional, or regional groupings, keeping in mind the balances and representations for the next Central Committee. Concerning the regional and confessional balances for the new Central Committee, the committee recognizes the representation decided by the Central Committee for the allocation of seats to the Assembly itself. Concerning the Orthodox churches, the committee has considered the procedure and understandings that have developed over the years through dialogue and consultation. In light of these procedures and understanding, the committee has maintained and applied the principle of 25% Orthodox representation in the next Central Committee. The committee will also follow the advice of the Nominations Committee in Porto Alegre and Busan to, quote, separate the Orthodox members from the regional members, close quote.
The committee has also taken into consideration the other balances: gender, 50% women, youth, 25%, and lay, ordained, 50% lay. It has been informed that at this 11th Assembly, the percentage of women delegates registered is 35%, youth is 10%, and lay is 29%. The committee will also give consideration to appropriate participation of persons with disabilities and indigenous peoples. The Nominations Committee fully understands and affirms the need to press for the full participation of people in all the above-mentioned categories, and will work in that spirit of mutual understanding and commitment to our fellowship, with the aim of reaching together the mandated balances, but will be drawing from among the delegates present.
To date, the Nominations Committee received 155 nominations from 105 of the 352 member churches, some of which are consensus nominations from a group of churches. The committee encourages the delegations of all remaining churches to respond, reminding them of the request that where a church is represented at the assembly by more than one delegate, a prioritized list of nominations be submitted rather than just a single name. The assembly is also reminded that names supported by more than one church will carry more weight for the nominations committee. Regional and confessional meetings are encouraged to consult on their nominees. As well, the assembly is reminded that representation and direct participation in the work of the WCC takes place not only through the Central Committee, but also through the commissions and joint consultative bodies of the WCC. The elections to which will take place during the first full meeting of the Central Committee in June 2023, as well as reference groups established to accompany major programs and ecumenical initiatives of the Council. Churches that do not find themselves represented in the Central Committee will have other possibilities for meaningful participation.
The Nominations Committee urges each delegate who finds themselves nominated to serve on the Central Committee to review the Constitution and rules of the World Council of Churches and the supplement to the rules in order to understand the responsibilities of that role and assess whether they are able and willing to undertake those responsibilities. Particular attention should be given to Article 5 of the Constitution on organization, Rule 1, membership in the World Council of Churches, Rule 2, responsibilities of membership, Rule 6, Central Committee, member responsibilities, Central Committee functions, Rule 19, reaching consensus, seeking the common mind of the meeting, and decision-making by consensus. And the supplement, Section 2, responsibilities of church representatives elected to the WCC's governing bodies.
The process for submitting further proposed nominations. 1, proposed nominations should be prepared in writing and sent by email to nominations@wcc-coe.org. We'll have that later on board. Or brought to the WCC office in Nancy Hall. Second, where a church is represented at the assembly by more than one delegate, written endorsement of the nominations from the church head office for the Orthodox churches from the primate or head of delegation is required. Third, all further proposed nominations must be received by 1600 hours, Friday, September 2, 2022.
So you see, we've already been hard at work. Oh, yeah, you have our first report in front of you. We've been working in the evening and at lunchtimes. We'll continue to work hard, and we hope that we are able to continue in this good spirit of the fellowship of the World Council of Churches. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barrister. Thank you, Bishop. You've had the process. I would like us to use our indicator cards, not clap, please. I would like to see how the House relates to that process and the fact that you are being requested also to continue to reflect on extra names by Friday. But you've had the process. The purpose is to try to get a slate for Central Committee and Presidents. So can I see your indicator cards to the Nominations Committee? Thank you. Thank you for that. We'll now move on to the Public Issues Committee and invite, I think it's Archbishop Angelo and Nora. Yeah. Okay. Huh? They're here. Yeah, they're here.
Thank you, moderator, and good afternoon, everyone. We are not going to be able to present a report as such this time, but we'll report on the process because, as you know, there are already some topics which Dr. Nora will speak to that have been presented, and there may be others that will be presented later. And by way of notice, we are giving notice now that anyone who wants to add anything to the Public Issues Committee for a statement will have 24 hours to do so from this session. So please send it to the required email address. It's up there, public.issues@wcc.coe.org, and we'll take that into consideration. What we're going to do, because there are so many issues, is we are going to split the actual committee into groups that will deal with the individual statements that will then be coming out. To give you an idea of how much this group will have to work, and please do hold us all in your prayers, most of you will have an average of 5 sessions. This group has 11 sessions over the remainder of this assembly so that it can formulate all the statements that we need to put out. There'll be 4 sessions on Saturday and 2 sessions on Sunday. There have already been, as I said, some put forward, and we're waiting for any other amendments. Finally, we'd just very much like to thank WCC staff for the incredible support they've been giving us and that they will continue to give us over this time. We are very blessed to have Dr. Noura Bayrakdarian, who is our rapporteur, and I will pass over to her to give you some more about the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I am privileged to serve as the rapporteur of the Public Issues Committee, and also I am very privileged to work with His Eminence, the moderator, Archbishop Angeleos, and I join His Eminence in thanking the very valuable work achieved by the staff accompanying the Public Issues Committee. I will be reading the text and the titles of the themes that will be presented to you, and I will be reading the themes without any prioritization, just as they are listed in front of me. First of all, war in Ukraine and peace and justice in the European region, statement, or number 1. 2, the living planet seeking just and sustainable communities. 3, the things that make for peace, moving the world to reconciliation and unity. Justice and peace in the Holy Land, preconditions for the future of Christian communities and social cohesion in the Middle East. Christian witness and action for human dignity and human rights. Confronting racism and xenophobia, overcoming discrimination, ensuring belonging. 7, global health and well-being. 8, new and emerging technologies, ethical challenges. We invite the delegates to look at the compilation of text before you as part of the general documentation of the General Assembly and bring up your proposals to the Public Issues Committee. And as referred by the moderator, we received a number of new proposals, a compilation of new proposals, and the deadline is postponed till tomorrow in order to submit additional ones. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eminence. Thank you, Dr. Nora. You've heard the process. You've heard the 8 theme areas. They will not come in that order because the executive made a proposal. But you've also heard that they have received some extra suggestions. We would like you to submit your comments, questions to that committee if need. So can we see your indicator cards if you, there is a blue card. Yes, microphone 1, please.
Good evening, my name is Pablo Huasuk from the Methodist Church in Uruguay, South America. I will speak in Spanish. Disculpen que moleste en este momento, simplemente para informar que no he podido encontrar el documento inicial del Comité de Cuestiones de Actualidad, PICO1, en otro idioma que no fuera inglés. Agradezco pueda ser traducido a la brevedad al resto de los idiomas oficiales del Consejo Mundial de Iglesias. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you for that very important observation. I hope the Secretariat is listening to that. Sorry for that, but I think the English copies are out. And so, can I again see your cards? The process is going on, and the committees are resuming. Thank you very much. Thank you for that decision by consensus. They move forward with what they have presented, and also what has been submitted will be reported back to us. I would like then that we move forward, and if you look at the annotated agenda of the Assembly committees, you can consult on Assembly documentation. There is a site there, and the Assembly app. I will ask each committee to actually briefly introduce, these are the next committees, because their documents are on that site. But I want to ask members of various committees to look at that site. So not taking too much time, may I invite the Finance Committee, and in this case it is, what? No, we have moved. Is he there? Yeah. I would like to ask the Finance Committee, and that is His Eminence Nicolovos and Reverend Marilyn Hyde Riley, if you can please. I'm sorry if I didn't see His Grace Viken, but I'll come back to him.
Good afternoon. And earlier today, our Acting General Secretary reminded us about the finances. So we just had one meeting, so we don't have a detailed report or anything. Both of us just want to share what this committee will be trying to achieve. The Assembly Finance Committee's mandate is to review the developments in and profile of the World Council of Churches' finances over the past 9 years. Following consultation with the Program Guidelines Committee and a review of income perspectives, the Assembly Finance Committee proposes general guidelines for the financial strategy for the next cycle of work. In undertaking this work, the committee will review trends in income and expenditure, reports from the Pension Fund Committee and the Audit Committee, as well as developments in the real estate development project in Geneva, Green Village. From this work, the Assembly Finance Committee will recommend financial policy priorities to be addressed by Central Committee. Merlin, to you.
I'm Merlin Hyde Riley. I'm the rapporteur, Jamaica Baptist Union, and I continue. When the Assembly met in Busan in the wake of the financial crisis of 2008, there was concern over both the decreasing levels of income and the loans taken to refinance the pension fund. However, the launch of the WCC strategic plan by Central Committee in 2014 marked the start of a new cycle during which a remarkable level of stability in contributions was attained. Between 2015 and 2019, an average of 17.7 million generously contributed by member churches and ecumenical partners assured the basis for the programmatic work, including the services of the General Secretariat, governance meetings, and communication. Certainly, the impact of the pandemic in 2020 and 2021 have resulted in reduced income, but also an adaptation in ways of working. The WCC has adjusted expenditure plans faithfully according to income each year. No program deficits have been incurred throughout the entire cycle of the work. Further, the work guided by the Steering Committee for the Green Village project has progressed. As a result of the development and land sales, the pension fund loans were reduced by half in 2020 and will be reimbursed entirely this year. There will be new challenges for the next period in a time of climate crisis and the war in Ukraine. Market instabilities, inflation, and government military expenditure will have abounding repercussions, and also on the finances of the World Council of Churches. However, for the future cycle, as it has been throughout, the sustainability of the World Council of Churches rests in our hands. Our hopes remain strong. We will continue to work collaboratively. Through our many networks and ecumenical partners, we shape the work of this, our organization. The Assembly Finance Committee will listen carefully to the Program Guideline Committee. The directions and plans for the programmatic work and the ways in which these might evolve as we work and pray together in this Assembly also set the scene for our reflection on the financial policies.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Metropolitan.
And also, if you have any suggestions, please forward it to the above the slide email address. Thank you.
Thank you. So they have shared their agenda. You have their emails, all the committees. And if you have any comments, issues, please do send to them. Message. Yeah. May I call on Bishop Gregory Cameron and Reverend Lucy Waweru to present the agenda for their message committee.
Well, good afternoon, brothers and sisters. It's my pleasure and privilege this afternoon to introduce to you the Reverend Lucy Waweru of the Presbyterian Church of East Africa. And you confirmed Lucy yesterday as the rapporteur of the Message Committee.
I am also very pleased to introduce to you Bishop Gregory Cameron from the church in Wales, whom you also confirmed yesterday as the moderator of the Message Committee.
And I've got a very important question to ask you. Could you please raise your indicator cards to tell us how much you're enjoying the Assembly so far? If it's been a good experience, orange. If it's been a bad experience, blue. Well, I'm glad to say, as I look out over you, that the vast majority of the delegates are having a good time. And that's very good news for us in the Message Committee, because it's been the practice of every assembly to adopt a short message which can be relayed from the assembly to the Christian world, indeed to the world as a whole, to express the spirit of what has happened in our assembly and in our meeting, to talk about the way in which we believe the movement of the Holy Spirit has led us as a family of churches into the future. Now, that's a big task. So how are we going to do it, Lucy?
Thank you very much. We do have a diverse team of 21 members who are excited and happy to serve in this committee. We have had 2 meetings already, and we continue to listen from the different aspects of this assembly. We are listening in order to come up with a short and very inspirational message that can go out there and inspire the church. And you already have an email that you can use, because we would like to invite you all to contribute to this message committee. But Bishop, this already sounds like a very difficult task.
A difficult task indeed. The Message Committee at its meeting this afternoon confirmed that they believed a short message was best. So we've got to reduce everything that has happened in the last 2 days and in the next 7 days into 1,000 words. So our work is very much cut out. The one thing I would say is we should not confuse the work of the Message Committee and the Public Issues Committee. The message is not intended to give the views of the WCC on all the many issues that quite rightly we will consider and debate. It's to capture the essence of what is happening. So as Lucy has said, we'll be learning, listening, and looking. And if you have any views or any inspirational statements that we can share, then please do contact us. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop Gregory and Reverend Lucy. Yeah, we are looking forward to a great, great message. Please offer your suggestions. Thank you so much. Can I see your cards, indicator cards? If you agree with the direction you have heard, the purpose, thank you. Those of you who are not in Busan might want to look at the message from Busan and previous assemblies. Thank you. We now move on to the Policy Reference Committee, and I'd like to invite Metropolitan Gabriel and the Reverend Dr. Xu Pin Chu to come forward and present the Policy Reference Committee agenda and process.
Thank you, moderator. Good evening, everyone. I would like to start presenting to you the mandate and the tasks of the Policy Reference Committee. I am Metropolitan Gabriel from the Orthodox Church of Greece, and I will try to serve as a moderator of the Policy Reference Committee, together with my colleague, Reverend Dr. Xu Pin Chiu from the Presbyterian Church in Taiwan. And I said it correct?
No, that's quite correct.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So we will meet in 11 times during the assembly. It will be a very tight time to arrive to a conclusion, and the mandate of the Policy Reference Committee presents recommendations to the assembly for action based on the reports of the moderator and the acting general secretary. We will deal with membership matters and amendments to the Constitution and rules of the World Council of Churches. The committee also will deal with the unity statement, and we will also split our work in subcommittees. I will invite now the rapporteur to explain to you how this will move on, please.
Thank you. In our first meeting, we proposed 3 subcommittees, and the first one is about statement on unity. Its task is to review the proposed statement on unity and make recommendations about it to the Assembly Plenary if it is appropriate. And the second subcommittee, which is WCC relationships, especially with the Roman Catholic Church and the Pentecostals. Its task is to review the reports of the joint working group with the Roman Catholic Church and the report from the joint consultative group with Pentecostals and make recommendations to the Assembly Plenary if appropriate. And the third one is about rules and the membership. Its task the first task is to recommend that the Assembly confirm the changes in WCC Rules 1 and 6 already approved by the WCC Central Committee last June. It will also review the report on membership and, if appropriate, make recommendations about the WCC and the new and emerging communities denominations, particularly in the southern hemisphere.
Also, moderator and dear sisters and brothers, we will try to receive the pre-assembly reports as well as the reports from the ecumenical conversation groups. We'll have to figure out how this will happen. So we will ask for your prayers in order to conclude our mandate for the assembly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can see they have a whole load of documents, and we can facilitate them by bringing particularly ecumenical conversations, pre-assemblies. If you could please ensure that the documents reach them, reports reach the committee on time. Thank you. Can I see your indicator cards if you agree with the process, the documents, and if you feel anything is missed out, please do write it down, send it to the policy reference group. You have the email there. Thank you for that. Yeah. Is there anyone at the microphone? No. I don't think there's anyone at the microphone. Okay. Shall we? Yeah? Shall we move on then to the Program Guidelines Committee? And I hereby invite the Reverend Karen Van Broek and Reverend Dr. Karen Georgia. I don't know how the Karens got together, but that is good.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Karin van der Broeke. I am from a Protestant Church of the Netherlands, an ordained minister. One of these churches that belong to the United and Uniting Churches. In my church, I am responsible for the Department of Mission and Diaconia. And I'm very happy to serve at the Central Committee and at the Executive Committee since I became elected in Busan. During this assembly, I'm very happy to serve as a moderator of the Program Guidelines Committee. And I'm happy that we have Karen Georgia Thompson on board as an excellent rapporteur. The Program Guidelines Committee is a committee of 46 people. And during the weekend, we will also work with subcommittees having their own moderators and rapporteurs. The program subcommittees will dig in the specific programmatic areas there are for our programmatic work. Some of you may ask, what's the Program Guidelines Committee doing? Well, at least what we try to do is to review the programmatic work from Busan to Karlsruhe and dig into it and ask ourselves what's in it that we need to continue or to change a little bit for future programmatic work. We try to propose overall policies for future programmatic work, and we'll do it, as the Central Committee asked us to do, in an integrated way. And we want to look at possible priorities in the programmatic work. For instance, how do we go on with the pilgrimage? Which challenges and which opportunities do we see? On unity and mission, on ecumenical formation, on public witness and diaconia. How are they related to each other? How do they work together? And what's meaningful to stress for the coming years? How are we working together with churches on the different levels, the national churches, the member churches, but also the local congregations, the church on the grassroots level? How do we work together with faith-based organizations, with people of faith, and with all people of goodwill? How do we deal in a programmatic way with the longing for eco-justice? We try to listen to the Assembly. We have the inputs of many reports, but also of being here together as an Assembly in many different ways. We have the input of our own ears and of what we read before. But please feel free to contact us so that we can serve the Assembly as good as we can to come up with proposals for the programmatic work for our fellowship of churches for the coming years, inspired by the compassionate love of Jesus Christ on our journey of justice and peace.
So to get to our final report, as Karen said, we will be looking at the reports of the Assembly, those that have been provided by staff and by others. We will also be listening for reports coming out from Getty and from the ecumenical conversations, so that as we put this report together, it is reflective of what we're hearing from you all. Each member of the Program Guidelines Committee is tasked with listening in the communities where they are present so they can bring those inputs back so that we can bring to you a report that has recommendations that are reflective of the future work of the World Council of Churches. The email is there. We will be checking that for any inputs that we have, and thank you.
Thank you very much. You've had such a large committee that must work in subcommittees, but really critical to the future present work of the council. Can I see your indicator cards if you agree with the process, the documents, and good. Thank you. Thank you. Just to remind us that we have agreed by consensus on the process the nominations committee is assuming, and that any submissions must be by tomorrow, 4 o'clock, if you have anything else. Number two, we have also agreed on the issues for public issues, and if there are any others, you have actually 24 hours within which to submit. Now, before I begin to conclude, I am sorry I did not see, I think there's too much light. If Archbishop Viken could still submit what he wanted to say briefly before we, yeah? Yeah,
he's coming to the mic now.
Yes, yeah, it's okay. Let him speak.
Thank you, moderator. My appreciation goes to public issues committees, and at the same time, I have some concerns. My concern is that in between two assemblies, when something happens, the World Council of Churches makes a statement and condemn atrocities. In this case, this is not a central committee meeting, it's the assembly of the World Council of Churches that after 9 years is taking place here. Moderator, it's impossible to ignore the atrocities done to my people. If I'm not wrong, somebody from there said that, well, why do we speak about Ukraine too much? Because Ukraine is Europe. I mean, if something happens in Africa, it means that we are not going to get involved. If something happens in Asia, we are not going to get involved. If something happens in Americas, aren't we going to get involved? Whenever injustice is done to any people in the world, it's our moral responsibility to defend. Moderator, this assembly should not go without mentioning the atrocities done to those people. Why do we forget what happened in Yemen? What do we forget what's happening in Ethiopia? Why do we forget still what's happening in Armenia? Every other week they occupied 1 or 2 villages. What happened to POWs, 110, 118 persons last 2 years? There is no government in the world that is pushing the Turkish, the Azeri government to free those young people. Where are we when 5,000 young people were killed? And a statement, we condemn it, so what? So what? Moderator, this organization should be a moral organization and take care of every nation, every minority, every people that are suffering. Thank you.
Thank you. May I request that we will use our cards, please? Thank you, Your Eminence. I think you have still time to submit your concerns to the committee. I would like to remind us, I don't know if it was said in the morning, but today is Thursday. And this Thursday, you see people in black, you see badges. It's because we remember those men, boys, girls, women, all over the world subjected to all kinds of violence and abuse. So if we will be together again on a Thursday, please remember to just offer prayer to those people. I'll invite the General Secretary to share the announcements. Thank you so much for your participation, the committee leadership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So now we move to the coffee break. And following the coffee break, many of you will meet for the first time session of ecumenical conversations. The location of your ecumenical conversations are in the Assembly app. There are also printed copies available here. At the same time that ecumenical conversations meet, there will be Brunnen workshops. If you sign up for a workshop, you will find the location in your program on the Assembly app and document site. Printed copies are also available. The evening prayer tonight is prepared by local Eastern Orthodox churches. We will meet under the prayer tent. After the prayer, there will be confessional meetings for delegates, advisors, representatives, observers, and stewards. We are grateful to the Christian World Communions helping to lead the confessional meetings. Locations are published on the Assembly app and document site. Printed copies are also available. Thank you, moderator.
Now the venues of the confessional meetings, they are in the apps. Microphone 3, please.
Thank you, moderator. Nugusu Legese, Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, delegate, speak in English. I just want to pick up from His Eminence Archbishop Viken. I come from a country that's suffering from a proxy war in Ethiopia over the past 12 months. And as of yesterday, a monastery has been hit and two monks killed. What did they do? They didn't do anything. We are suffering from our own innocence for doing nothing as a proxy war. The proxy war coming from, supported by the Western nations. We didn't do anything wrong in the country. And how much do we have to suffer? For how many women, children, and elderly have to die? How many? We have already over 1 million displaced people, internally displaced people. Madam Moderator, I thought this morning you raised this, yesterday you raised this in your report, but nothing has happened. I really would like to, we are suffering, we would like to report, I would like to propose this meeting to set up a team and visit not Ethiopia, but the Western nations who are supporting, sponsoring. As of last week, there was a military plane that came with ammunition into the country. That last week on the 24th, that was brought down by Ethiopian Air Force. To that extent, we are suffering, even ammunition coming for the rebel group that's attacking Ethiopian people. How long do we have to die? Where is justice? Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, where is justice? Anywhere in this world, where is justice? Shall we, just to be very clear, we are clear where the ecumenical conversations are meeting. We are clear where confessional families are meeting. Yeah? Yeah. So now we will take a minute to go for a break, and please find out where you need to be. Time up tomorrow. Too bad.